gkisedtanamoogk, gkisedtanamoogk, migama kwato timinokana. Na oachinantungkasano yo pema makisukon na oachina peskumagati och na sachamakichi kuno achinantungkasano kana. Na oachinantungkasano na manetu kuno achinantungkasano kana. Ito pilo hochina kumiyonkana. I'm Kisatanamook. I come from the Otter clan. I am here to share some thoughts um, for Chief Akaji of the Beskumagadi Nation. And I was asked to uh, recollect my experience with the Megama fishery at Burnt Church um, in uh, our attempt to create a way to act upon the fishery needs of the community just after the Marshall decision in 1999. One of the principal frameworks that we're dealing with, particularly at that time, was to take upon ourselves the governance structure of how we would relate to a commercial fishery. And up until that time, to the Marshall decision, we had limited access, certainly no commercial access to our own waters. Esconobidich is located in the northeast portion of New Brunswick on the Miramichi Bay. Both the waters and the land are unceded territories due to fishery regulations and the Government of Canada First Nation policies. We haven't had access to our own free access to our own territories. So the Marshall decision was a great impact in the community. And in the interim preceding the 2000 season, the spring fishery, the community in the interim had created their own management plan as an act of community governance. And in that management plan, it called for roughly 5,000 traps during the commercial season, lobster fishery season, and then during the food fishery in the fall. And the management plan was created by the community and put in place during the commercial season in 2000. This was an attempt to relieve the concerns of our neighbors, the Acadian in the Anglophone fishery communities, that we were seeking to control our own self-entry into the commercial fishery, and then limited our participation in the commercial fishery. Unfortunately, the Government of Canada took a different perspective. They declared that the self-governance activity of the community was unlawful and was in violation of the fishery codes and policies, to which the Government of Canada, by virtue of the Marshall decision, reaffirmed the constitutional mandate of Canada to honor both the inherent rights of Indigenous peoples as well as the treaty obligations that Canada had embraced on behalf of the Crown of England. the governance of Iskanovich um, fell under uh, that presumption that we are working on a nation-to-nation, government-to-government relationship with the government of Canada, and that DFO, or Department of Fisheries and Oceans regulations, um, did not apply to self-regulatory um, fishery, in that as a nation in relationship to another nation by virtue of the treaties, that the internal mechanisms of the fishery belong exclusively to the Mi'kmaq people, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans was not a part of that. Um, and I believe that probably the longest police action in the history of Canada um, took place from 1999 to 2002. And in the summer of 2000, a fishery season, the government of Canada, by virtue of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the RCMP, um, had a very brutal um, attack on the Mi'kmaq fisheries in Iskanovich. And as a result of those attacks, I had access to two human rights watch groups, the the um, Aboriginal Rights Atlantic, which was an instrument at the time of the collective churches of Canada. And I invited them to come and witness and record, as well as an international group called the Christian Peacemaker Teams. They were housed in, um, I believe, in Chicago, but they had also offices in Canada, I believe in Toronto. So both these human rights observer teams came to Burnt Church, and they recorded um, for those 3 years, from 2000 to 2002. And so a lot of the police action that took place, as well as the non-native um, uh, concerns in terms of protest, all that was recorded. The police action of both the RCMP and DFO was quite brutal, and we're fortunate that nobody was killed in the process. In 2002, up until that time, Canada, by way of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, refused to even talk to the community on the self-regulation of the community's fishery. We started to hear a different tune to the Department of Fisheries Oceans, that they were now considering having a dialogue and a conversation with the community on the community's fisheries plan in the fall of 2002. Really delighted and relieved that this was going to be a possibility. Unfortunately, sometime in the summer of 2002, the band held elections. And it was quite surprising to us, because it wasn't a normal time for community elections. And unfortunately, and we believe today that was a maneuver on the part of the government of Canada and the Department of Indian Affairs at the time to hold these elections. And the crucial aspect of these elections was that the chief and council at the time, prior to these elections, was supporting community action and was supporting the community uh, governance plan. The people that were elected into um, were members of the old chief and council systems, which was not in favor of community action and was not in favor of the management plan, but wanted to settle with DFO. And they held secret meetings outside of the directive coming from the community. The old chief and council had secret meetings with the Department of Fisheries Ocean, and they settled with the department to abide by the DFO regulations. Um, and that was a really serious blow to the community's fisheries, self-governance fisheries. With all that said, the circumstances and the conditions that were present at that time still remains after 20 some odd years. If our community decided to return to their fishery and to their fishery management plan, we would presume that we would be back at square one and having um, to deal with the policing activities of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the RCMP. And that happens when we have no discussions, come to no agreements with both the Department of Fisheries and Oceans as well as the Government of Canada. And this brings to mind a very particular experience that I personally had being invited by Chief Agaji to a meeting with Department of Fisheries and Ocean scientists. And the object of this meeting was to talk about the community's fisheries management plan. And I was quite surprised that the Department of Fisheries and Ocean scientists embraced the management plan, embraced it with the caveat that no other program or management program in the Department of Fisheries Ocean ever took into consideration as the community's management plan with the habitat of the fishery and the science of the habitat of the fishery. And we were quite surprised that DFO scientists were highly supportive of the community's management plan, and that was a great joy and victory for our community. And with all that said, then we are having to wonder why in all these years that Canada as a governance seems to be very hesitant and certainly appears to refuse to honor the nation-to-nation treaty relationship, as well as the inherent rights recognized by and mandated by their own constitution. And it appears to many of us that um, essentially, if the government of Canada is violating tenets of its own constitution, then they're acting illegally. And essentially, most First Nations are dealing with outlaws if that's the case, and that is the case. So rather than abide by the mutuality of treaty relations and the protocol of those treaties, Canada refuses to uphold their own constitutional mandate. Life would be a whole lot easier if we were working on the basis of uh, of a relationship that's trustworthy, a relationship that equals the mutual sovereignty of both the Crown and First Nations, and to create public policies based on friendship and peace and mutual respect. I hope that this summit of that's uh, bringing DFO members of DFO and chiefs organizations together. I hope that particular summit will lead to the kind of relationship that I speak of, that is needed, and that, for all intents and purposes, already exists between uh, the the Crown in Canada and the governance of Canada and First Nations peoples. And so, with that, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share these thoughts and these few words. Dapat na iwatin ng tungkasanog wachi wanap kumayong inachiha iwahaje hasko ikwasin iwatin na.